ever had one of those bosses? You know, the kind that could make even a free pizza party feel like a chore.
Oh, absolutely. The ones that make you question if you even like your job anymore.
Exactly. And it seems like everyone's got a story about a bad manager, right?
It's like a universal experience at this point, unfortunately.
So, we asked you guys to send in some stuff about navigating difficult managers, and we got this really interesting presentation that I actually think is it's really good.
Yeah.
It's not just complaining, it's like actual practical advice.
Oh, that's great. Because, yeah, it's a real thing. A difficult boss, it doesn't just like ruin your workday. It can really affect everything.
Oh, 100%.
Like it's those ripple effects. They're real.
Yeah.
And it's super draining. Trying to do your best when you're always kind of looking over your shoulder, second guessing everything.
Totally. So we're diving deep into these like bad bosses types and how to, actually deal with them. Sound good?
Let's do it. Unpack those archetypes.
Okay, so first up, the one we all know and love, the classic micromanager.
Oh, yeah.
This presentation, it like paints this hilarious picture of them like obsessed with control, wants to be CC'd on every single email.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And probably has a red pen like surgically attached to their hand.
Right. Always ready to jump in. But, it's funny, but it also highlights something really important about micromanagers. There was this study by Harvard Business Review, and it actually found that when employees are constantly micromanaged, like seriously micromanaged, innovation totally tanks.
Really?
Yeah, they're so busy with the tiny details that any creativity or new ideas just get completely stifled.
That's actually a really good point. I never thought about it like that. You're so worried about getting everything right, according to their like micromanaging ruler, that you just stop like taking risks or suggesting anything new.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about the opposite end of that spectrum? The infamous absent manager,
Yeah.
The boss who's like a myth, you hear whispers about them in the break room but never actually see them.
The elusive manager.
Exactly.
But really, it can be so damaging when you don't have any direction. It's like you feel lost, and it's not just that feeling, but it really makes it hard to do your job well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How are you supposed to meet deadlines and like prioritize things, feel any sense of accomplishment when you're in the dark all the time?
Yeah, it's like they're asking you to bake a cake with no recipe, no ingredients, and honestly, no oven.
Right. It's just not going to happen.
Impossible. Okay, so this next one, this is like a personal pet peeve of mine, and it sounds like the presentation is right there with me. The dreaded credit thief.
Yes.
You put your heart and soul into something, and they just swoop in, slap their name on it, and present it as their own.
It's even more frustrating. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. Or, like, they think they're being a good manager, like, oh, I'm representing the team, but it's like, hello, we did the work.
It's like they're stealing your voice, your work, your ideas, and then they're the ones getting praised for it.
Exactly.
Infuriating. Okay, next up we have the emotional, unpredictable manager. This one, it's like navigating a minefield,
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
You never know what mood you're going to get. One wrong step. Explosion. And the presentation, they actually use this phrase, walking on eggshells, which I think perfectly describes it. It's just constant anxiety.
And it's interesting you say anxiety because there's actually a lot of research about how that type of like emotionally unpredictable leadership can really impact people's well-being. Like there was this one study and it found that employees who have those kinds of bosses, they report way higher levels of stress, burnout, even physical things like headaches, insomnia.
Wow, so it's not just in our heads then?
No, it can really mess with you.
Because if you're constantly on edge, wondering when they're gonna, erupt over a misplaced comma, it's gonna take a toll. Okay, last but definitely not least, we have the insecure manager. The presentation describes them as like threatened by their employees' competence, which honestly sounds exhausting.
It really can be for everyone involved. And often they end up, maybe not intentionally, but they're holding their team back.
Right, because if you're constantly worried that someone's going to like outshine you.
Exactly. They might like take credit for your ideas or just shut down your suggestions in meetings or even, some cases actually try to sabotage your projects.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. It's all about protecting their own ego, But the irony is it hurts everyone in the end.
Totally. So, like, how do we actually deal with these managerial misfits? Because so far, it's a pretty bleak picture you've painted.
Well, don't worry. There's hope. There are actually really effective ways to deal with even the toughest bosses. Remember, knowledge is power, right? But it's what we do with it.
Love that. Okay, so let's get tactical. First up, the micromanager. How do we loosen their grip without losing our minds?
So this presentation actually has some solid advice for this one. It boils down to like building trust and creating space for yourself. So instead of waiting for them to ask for updates, be proactive.
Okay, so like almost too much communication.
In a way, yeah. Send them regular progress reports, even if it seems like, a bit much. The key is to be strategic. Don't just CC them on every single email. That's overkill.
Right.
Focus on concise, helpful updates. Anticipate their questions.
So it's like you're one step ahead.
Exactly. You've got this. The more you can address their concerns before they even have them, the more they're going to back off.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Another thing is you can actually just talk to them about it directly, respectfully. Say something like, hey, I know this project is really important to you, and I want to make sure you're comfortable with my progress. Would it be helpful if I sent you a quick update every Monday?
Oh, I see. So you're acknowledging their need for control, but also setting boundaries.
Exactly.
Clever. Very strategic. Okay, what about the absent manager? How do you even, manage up when they're never around?
That's when you got to become your own manager,
Right.
Set your own goals, make a plan, and then regularly communicate your progress and any issues that come up, of course.
So you're showing them that you don't need constant supervision, but what if they're so absent they miss that too?
Well, that's where visibility is key. You got to document everything, share updates in meetings, find those opportunities to, subtly show off your accomplishments. Don't be afraid to toot your own horn a little bit, Make sure people know what you're doing.
I like it. Okay, let's move on to the credit thief, because this one's personal. How do we stop them from stealing our thunder?
Documentation, my friend. Write everything down, share your ideas in writing with colleagues, make sure you're getting credit where it's due. And in meetings, be strategic. You can say things like, ever since we implemented that new system I suggested, we've seen a 15% increase in efficiency.
Ooh, subtle but effective.
Exactly.
Okay, emotionally unpredictable manager. This feels like a tightrope walk.
It can be. The best thing you can do is try to detach, stay professional no matter what. Don't take their outbursts personally. And whatever you do not engage in an emotional argument. It's just going to make things worse.
So channel our inner Zen master.
Pretty much. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Okay, the insecure manager. How do we deal with their need for validation without stroking their ego too much?
Yeah, or downplaying our own achievement.
Right, it's a balance.
Yeah.
One thing you can try is framing your successes in a way that benefits the whole team. So instead of saying, I totally crushed that presentation, you could say, oh, the team's hard work really paid off with that presentation. It was amazing. We couldn't have done it without everyone.
Oh, so you're still acknowledging your role, but
you're giving them a little bit of that validation they crave.
Very diplomatic. Okay, but what about when it's just really bad? No amount of communication is going to fix it.
You're right. So sometimes it gets to that point. And it's important to remember that you have options. You don't have to stay in a situation that's making you miserable. You deserve to be happy at work.
Right. And this presentation, it talks about two paths you can take: escalation or moving on. Let's break those down. So escalation, that's basically calling in the big guns, right? HR.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's important to remember that escalation should really be saved for serious situations.
Right. Not just because your boss is annoying.
Exactly. We're talking harassment, discrimination, creating a hostile work environment, stuff like that.
Okay, so for those serious situations, what does that actually look like?
Documentation is key. Write down everything. Dates, times, witnesses, if there are any.
So you have, evidence.
Exactly. Okay, so the other path is, it's basically making a strategic retreat.
Moving on.
Yep. Sometimes it's the healthiest choice. If you've tried everything else and nothing's changed, it might be time to find a new opportunity.
That's a big decision. Yeah, it's hard leaving a job, but I get it. Sometimes you just got to do what's best for you. You never know. Maybe your dream job is out there just waiting.
Right. A job where you actually have a good boss who appreciates you.
Exactly. This deep dive, it's been really eye-opening. It's kind of reassuring to hear all this, knowing we're not alone in this and that we've got options.
Absolutely. You're never stuck. And, even if you've had some really rough bosses in the past, you can actually learn a lot from those experiences.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. When you're dealing with these difficult personalities, you have to learn how to communicate really effectively, how to set boundaries, how to resolve conflict, stand up for yourself.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Those are really valuable skills, and not just for work. They apply to all parts of life.
That's so true. Maybe you need to have a bad boss to really appreciate a good one.
Right. And hey, you never know. Maybe someday you'll even use what you've learned to help someone else who's going through the same thing.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap things up, we've talked about a lot today. Unmasked all the bad bosses out there, the micromanagers, the absent managers, the credit stealers, the emotionally all over the place ones, and of course the insecure ones. And most importantly, we've given you guys some tools and strategies to deal with them.
Exactly. You have the power to create a better work life for yourself. Remember that.
Yes. And listeners, we want to hear from you. Tell us your stories, good, bad, whatever you've got, what's worked for you. Did you finally escape a bad boss? Spill the tea. Head to the comments. Let's chat.
And if you're looking for more resources, about work stuff, leadership, any of that, we'll put some links in the show notes for you.
Awesome. So until next time, remember, you are awesome, you are capable, and you deserve a job that makes you happy.